They said I didn't belong. First black female Delta sniper holds off 40 enemies with 8 bullets. They told her she was a diversity hire, that she'd gotten into Delta Force because of what she looked like, not what she could do. That when real combat came, she'd freeze panic need protecting instead of providing it. Sergeant Maya Reeves had heard it all before. The whispers behind her back, the doubts spoken to her face, the assumption that being the first black woman in Delta Force meant the standards must have been lowered. She'd passed every test, topped every qualification, earned her place through undeniable performance. But for some people, no amount of proof was ever enough. Then came the mission in the Hindu Kush mountains, a routine reconnaissance that turned into a nightmare ambush. 12 Delta Force operators caught in a kill zone, 6 dead in the first minutes, 5 wounded and unable to fight. And Maya Reeves, the one they doubted, the one they'd said didn't belong, as the only operator still standing, with a sniper rifle and 8 bullets, against more than 40 Taliban fighters, with no air support, no backup, and no way out for 72 hours. This is the story of 3 days that rewrote the rules about who belongs in America's elite forces. 3 days of impossible choices, impossible shots, and one woman's refusal to let prejudice be proven right. 3 days that answered every doubt with devastating precision. Before we begin, if you believe in judging people by their actions rather than their appearance, please hit that like button and subscribe. Your support helps us share more stories of courage that transcend barriers. Now let's go back to the day Maya Reeves stopped trying to prove she belonged and simply showed them why she always had. The wind at Fort Bragg's long-range shooting facility carried the smell of gunpowder and possibility. Maya Reeves stood at the 1,000-yard line, her hands steady on the rifle despite the pressure of 15 pairs of eyes watching her every move. This was it, the final qualification for Delta Force selection. 10 targets at 1,000 yards in variable wind conditions. Miss more than one, and the dream died here. She was the only woman on the range, the only black candidate in this WASH selection cycle. The weight of representation sat heavy on her shoulders, but she'd learned long ago not to let it interfere with the fundamentals. Breathe, acquire, fire. The first target pinged a metallic sound that carried clearly in the crisp October air. Maya worked the bolt, chambered another round, found the second target. The wind had shifted slightly, she compensated, fired again. Another hit. By the time she reached the 10th target, she was in that zone where nothing existed except the rifle, the target, and the mathematics of wind distance and bullet drop. The shot felt perfect even as she squeezed the trigger. 10 shots, 10 hits, perfect score. She cleared her weapon and stood face carefully neutral, despite the triumph surging through her chest. She'd done it. First black woman to achieve a perfect score on Delta Force sniper qualification. Scattered applause came from the observation area. Some genuine, some grudging, all of it acknowledgement that she'd just done something undeniable. As Maya walked off the range, she passed 2 instructors talking in low voices. They didn't see her approach. Perfect score, one said. Kid's got real talent. Sure, the other replied. But talent on a range isn't the same as performance in combat. When she's got 40 Taliban fighters shooting back, we'll see if those diversity initiative scores still look so impressive. Come on, that's not fair. She earned this. Did she? Or did the Pentagon need someone who checked the right boxes? The instructor shook his head. Look, I'm not saying she's not capable. I'm saying she hasn't proven herself where it matters under fire with lives on the line. And until she does, there's going to be questions. Maya kept walking, her expression unchanged. She'd heard variations of this conversation for her entire military career. The doubt never ended. It just evolved, found new forms, new ways to suggest that her achievements weren't quite real. But she'd learned something important over the years. You couldn't argue with doubt using words. You could only drown it out with performance so loud that even the doubters had to listen. The question was whether she'd get the chance. That evening, Maya sat in her quarters at Fort Bragg, looking at the photo she kept on her wall. Her father, Sergeant First Class Marcus Reeves, in his Army Ranger uniform. Young, proud, powerful. The photo was taken in 2008, 2 years before he died in Fallujah. She'd been 16 when the notification officers came to the door. Old enough to understand that her father wasn't coming home. Old enough to see her mother collapse with grief. Old enough to decide right then that she'd follow in his footsteps. Her mother had begged her not to join the military. "It takes everyone I love," she'd said through tears. "First your father, now you want to give them your life too." But Maya had been determined. She'd enlisted at 18, pushed through infantry training, volunteered for Ranger School despite being one of the first women allowed to attempt it. She'd graduated, earned her tab, deployed to Syria and Iraq, then sniper school, then Delta selection. Every step she'd been first or among the first women to complete the training. Every step she'd heard the same doubts, the same whispers that she'd only made it because the military needed good optics. Her phone buzzed. A text from Colonel Nathan Price, her father's former commanding officer and now a mentor to Maya. "Heard you aced the final qual. Proud of you. Your father would be too. Remember what he always said, courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the job anyway." Maya smiled and texted back, "Thanks, sir," trying to live up to his example. Another text came almost immediately. "You already have. Now get some rest. Big day tomorrow." Tomorrow, that's when she'd officially join her Delta Force team. 12 operators who'd been together for 3 years, run dozens of missions, built the kind of trust that only comes from shared combat. And she was going to walk into that dynamic as an outsider. Not just new, but different in ways that would make some of them uncomfortable, whether they admitted it or not. Maya looked at her father's photo again. "Hope you're watching, Dad, because I'm going to need all the help I can get." The briefing room at Delta Force headquarters was smaller than Maya expected. Just a table, some chairs, maps on the walls. 12 men sat around the table when she entered, all of them turning to assess the newcomer. Lieutenant Connor Hayes stood at the head of the table. He was 35, lean and weathered, with the kind of eyes that measured everything and missed nothing. "Gentlemen, this is Sergeant Maya Reeves. As of today, she's part of the team." Hayes gestured to an empty chair. "Reeves, have a seat." Maya sat, aware of every eye on her. She kept her expression neutral, professional. Hayes continued, "Reeves comes to us with an impressive record. Top scores in sniper school, Ranger qualified, 2 combat tours. She just achieved a perfect score on Delta qualification, which is something only 3 people have done in the past 5 years. Perfect score on a range," someone muttered. Not quite loud enough to be a direct challenge, but definitely loud enough to be heard. Hayes's eyes narrowed. "You have something to say, Palmer." Staff Sergeant Rick Palmer was a big man, late 30s, with the kind of build that suggested he'd been lifting weights since before Maya was born. His face was hard, his eyes skeptical. "Permission to speak freely, sir." "Granted." Palmer looked directly at Maya. "No disrespect, Reeves, but you haven't earned this spot. You've been fast-tracked because of what you are, not who you are. This team has been together for 3 years. We've run 47 missions without a single casualty. That's because we trust each other completely, and that trust was built through years of shared combat." He leaned forward. "You're being inserted into that dynamic based on political pressure from the Pentagon to increase diversity in special operations. That's fine, I understand the directive, but it puts all of us at risk if you can't perform at the level we require. Wars on a range don't tell me if you can handle real combat pressure. They don't tell me if you'll freeze when 40 Taliban fighters are shooting at you." The room was silent, everyone waiting to see how Maya would respond. She met Palmer's eyes steadily. "You're right, Sergeant. I haven't proven myself to this team yet. I can't point to shared history or missions we've run together. All I can offer is my record: 2 combat tours, 37 confirmed enemy kills, 0 friendly fire incidents, commendations for valor under fire." She paused. "I understand your concerns. If I were you, I'd probably have the same ones. A new person joining a tight-knit team is always a risk, regardless of their background. So here's what I propose. Judge me by my performance. Give me a chance to prove I belong, and if I fail to meet your standards, I'll request a transfer myself." Palmer studied her for a long moment, then nodded curtly. "Fair enough, but understand this, we're not going to go easy on you. You'll be held to the same standard as everyone else. Maybe higher, since you're claiming you earned this spot. I wouldn't want it any other way." Hayes cleared his throat. "Now that we've got that settled, let's do introductions." He went around the table. Most of the team was neutral or cautiously welcoming. Sergeant Wade Jackson, communications specialist. African-American, 31, with a slight smile that suggested he appreciated having another person of color on the team. "Welcome aboard, Reeves. Good to have you." Sergeant Tommy Sullivan, combat medic, 26, freckled and red-haired. Hey, nice shooting today. That 1,000-yard win was brutal. Corporal Jake Morrison, weapons specialist, 24 and cocky with the kind of confidence that could tip into arrogance. So you're the one everyone's talking about. Let's see if you're as good as the scores say. Staff Sergeant Miller, Corporal Davis, and several others offered polite but reserved greetings. They were professional, but Maya could see the assessment in their eyes. She was being evaluated, measured, judged with every word and gesture. After the briefing, Jackson caught up with Maya in the hallway. "Don't let Palmer get to you," he said quietly. "He's old school, doesn't trust anyone new. But he's also a professional. Once you prove yourself, he'll have your back like anyone else." "Thanks, but he's not wrong to be skeptical." "I haven't proven myself with this team." "Maybe not, but you proved yourself getting here. That counts for something." Jackson glanced back toward the briefing room. "Between you and me, I'm glad you're here. This team could use some fresh perspective. And yeah, some diversity. We've been the same 12 white guys for 3 years. It's past time that changed." "I appreciate that, but I don't want to be here because of diversity. I want to be here because I'm the best person for the job." "Then be that, and let the rest of us catch up to realizing it." Over the next 3 weeks, Maya trained with the team in preparation for their next deployment. The training was intense: live-fire exercises, close quarters, combat helicopter insertions, medical scenarios. Everything designed to build cohesion and test capabilities. Maya performed well. She knew she did. Her shooting was consistently excellent, her tactical decisions sound, her physical conditioning superior to most of the team. But she could feel the doubt, the little moments of hesitation when someone had to trust her to cover them. The extra checks on her equipment, as if they expected her to miss something basic. The whispered conversations that stopped when she approached. It wasn't overt discrimination. Everyone was professional. Nobody said anything explicitly prejudiced. But the doubt was there, woven into every interaction. The worst part was Hayes. The team leader was scrupulously fair, never showing favoritism or prejudice. But Maya couldn't shake the feeling that he was watching her more closely than the others, looking for some sign that the doubters were right. 2 weeks into training, Maya accidentally accessed the wrong folder on the secure network while filing a routine report. She saw an email from Hayes to his commanding officer dated 3 days after she joined the team. "Request authorization for enhanced observation of Sergeant Reeves during Operation Highland Shield. First deployment with unit. Need to assess performance under real combat conditions to verify selection decision was appropriate. Will provide detailed evaluation upon mission completion." Maya stared at the email, a cold weight settling in her stomach. Hayes was basically putting her on probation. One mistake, one moment of hesitation, and she'd be gone. She deleted her access history and said nothing. But the knowledge burned. Even Hayes, who seemed fair, had doubts. That night she called her mother. "How's my soldier girl?" Her mother asked, warmth in her voice despite the years of worry. "Tired, Mom. Training's intense. Your father used to call before his deployments. Said hearing my voice helped him focus." "I remember." Maya hesitated. "Did Dad ever talk about facing doubt, about people not believing in him?" Her mother was quiet for a moment. "Your father faced doubt every day. He was a black man in the Rangers in the early 2000s. Not a lot of people looked like him in special operations back then. He told me once that he was tired of being twice as good to be considered half as qualified." "What did he do about it?" "He performed every single day. He outworked, outshot, and outthought everyone around him until even the racists had to admit he was excellent. And you know what? Some of them never did admit it. Some people will always find a way to discount your achievements." Her mother's voice softened. "But baby, you're not doing this for them. You're doing it for yourself. For your own sense of who you are and what you're capable of." "I'm afraid of failing, afraid of proving them right." "Then don't fail. But more importantly, don't let fear of their judgment affect your performance. You've earned every single thing you've achieved. The only person whose opinion matters is yours. Are you proud of what you've done?" Maya thought about it. "Yes." "Then that's enough. Let your performance speak for itself. And Maya, your father is watching. I truly believe that. And he's so proud of you. I can feel it." After the call, Maya looked at her father's photo again. "I won't let you down, Dad. Or myself. Whatever it takes, I'll prove I belong." 3 days before deployment, the team gathered for final mission briefing. Lieutenant Hayes pulled up satellite imagery on the screen. Operation Highland Shield. Our target is a Taliban commander named Khalid Nazari, operating out of Kunar province in eastern Afghanistan. Intelligence suggests he's planning a major attack on Bagram airfield. Our mission is to insert into the Hindu Kush mountains, establish an observation post overlooking Nazari's compound, gather intelligence on his movements and communications, then extract before the winter storm system hits the region. He zoomed in on the terrain. We'll insert via Chinook at 0200, march 6 hours to this location. He indicated a spot on the map. It's a natural cave system with clear line of sight to the compound about 800 yards distance. Perfect sniper position. Mission duration, Palmer asked. 4 to 5 days. We observe, collect intelligence, and extract before the storm system arrives. Weather reports show we have a narrow window storms forecast to hit the region in 6 days. Once it does, air support will be impossible for 72 to 96 hours. High winds, zero visibility, the whole package. What's our backup if things go wrong? Gwexon asked. Quick reaction force at Bagram can be wheels up in 15 minutes, on site in 45 under good conditions. But if the weather deteriorates, we're on our own until it clears. Hayes looked around the table. This is a reconnaissance mission, people. We observe only. No engagement unless absolutely necessary. Questions? Maya raised her hand. What's the local Taliban strength? Compound typically holds 15 to 20 fighters. But Nazari's a regional commander, so he can call in reinforcements from surrounding areas if needed. Worst case, we could be facing 50-plus hostiles if we're compromised. And we're 12 operators. Correct, which is why we don't get compromised. Hayes' eyes swept the team. We go in quiet, stay quiet, and get out quiet. This is what Delta does best: high-value intelligence gathering, but without leaving a trace. Palmer spoke up. Reeves will be primary sniper on Overwatch. Affirmative. She'll set up in the cave entrance with clear sight lines to the compound. Rest of us will be deeper in the cave system, monitoring signals, intelligence, and coordinating with command. Palmer nodded slowly, but Maya could see the concern in his eyes. The most critical position, the one that could make or break the mission, was being given to the untested operator. After the briefing, Palmer approached Maya. Got a minute? They walked to a quiet corner of the compound. I want to be straight with you, Reeves, Palmer said. You're getting the sniper position because Hayes thinks you're the best shot on the team. Your scores say he's right, but scores on a range and performance in combat are different animals. I understand that, Sergeant. Because if Taliban fighters spot us and you can't make the shots to protect this team, people die. My friends die. Men I've served with for years. Palmer's jaw tightened. I don't know you. I don't trust you yet. And I sure as hell don't trust that you weren't pushed through selection for political reasons. Maya met his eyes calmly. Sergeant Palmer, I can't make you trust me with words. I can only earn it through performance. So let me do my job. If I fail, you'll have every right to say you were right about me. But until then, give me the chance to prove you wrong. Palmer studied her for a long moment. Fair enough. But know this, I'll be watching. And if you show any sign of being a liability, I'm pulling you off that sniper position myself. I don't care what Hayes says. Understood. The night before deployment, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in her bunk, staring at the ceiling, playing through every scenario. What if Palmer was right? What if she froze under real combat pressure? What if her perfect qualification scores didn't translate when people were shooting back? She got up at 2 a.m., headed to the gym, found it empty, started running on the treadmill, trying to burn off the nervous energy. She ran for an hour before Hayes appeared. He looked like he hadn't been sleeping either. Mind if I join you? He asked. It's your gym, sir. They ran side by side in silence for several minutes. Finally, Hayes spoke. You know I'm evaluating you on this mission. Maya almost stumbled but caught herself. Yes, sir, I saw the email. Did you now? Hayes didn't sound surprised or angry. And how do you feel about that? Honestly, it sucks, sir. I've passed every test, earned every qualification, and I'm still on probation. Yes, you are. And you know why I am? Because I'm black and female, and that makes people uncomfortable. Hayes actually laughed. No, Reeves, because you're new. Every new operator gets evaluated on their first mission. I did it with Morrison 2 years ago, with Davis, 3 years ago, with everyone who's joined this team. It's standard procedure. The email made it sound like more than that. The email was politically worded because my chain of command wanted assurance that we were properly vetting the first woman assigned to Delta Force. But between you and me, you're being evaluated the same way everyone else was. No more, no less. He increased his treadmill speed. But here's the thing, Reeves. You're right that some people doubt you for reasons that have nothing to do with your capabilities. Palmer, for instance. He's a good man, a great soldier, but he's got blind spots. He sees you as a diversity hire because that's easier than examining his own biases. So what do I do about that? You perform. You do your job so well that even the doubters have to shut up. That's what your father did. That's what you've been doing your entire career. You keep doing it until it becomes undeniable. Hayes slowed his treadmill to a stop. Get some rest, Sergeant. Tomorrow you get your chance to show everyone, including yourself, what you're made of. Yes, sir. As Hayes walked away, Maya thought about his words. Every new operator gets evaluated. Maybe that was true. But she also knew that the scrutiny on her would be more intense, the margin for error smaller, the consequences of failure more severe. That was the price of being first, of breaking barriers that others had built and defended for decades. All she could do was be ready. The Chinook helicopter flew low through the darkness, following mountain valleys to avoid detection. 12 Delta Force operators sat in the cargo bay, each lost in their own pre-mission thoughts. Maya checked her rifle for the 10th time. M110 semi-automatic sniper system. She knew this weapon better than she knew herself, every scratch on the stock, every quirk in the trigger pull. It was loaded with match-grade ammunition, 20 rounds in the magazine, plus 8 rounds in her vest. Enough for a reconnaissance mission where shooting wasn't supposed to happen. Across from her, Palmer was checking his own gear, his face set in concentration. Their eyes met briefly. No warmth there, but also no hostility. Just a professional acknowledgement. Jackson slid over. First mission jitters. A little, Maya admitted. Normal. I threw up before my first Delta operation. Morrison cried. Don't tell him I told you that. Hey, I heard that, Morrison called from down the bay. Jackson grinning. Point is, everyone's nervous. It means you're taking it seriously. 2 minutes, the pilot announced over the intercom. The team stood performing final equipment checks. 70 pounds of gear, each weapons ammunition, food, water, communications equipment. Everything needed to survive 4 days in hostile territory. The helicopter descended rapidly, coming in fast and low to minimize exposure. The landing zone was a small clearing surrounded by mountain peaks, the kind of terrain that could hide an army or be completely empty. No way to know until boots hit ground. 30 seconds. Maya's heart pounded, but her hands were steady. This was it. The moment she'd been training for her entire military career. The helicopter flared, rotors biting air. The ramp dropped. Go! 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 The team poured out in perfect sequence, moving quickly to establish a defensive perimeter. Maya was fifth out, her rifle up and scanning for threats. The helicopter lifted, immediately disappearing into the darkness. Suddenly, they were alone in the Hindu Kush Mountains at 10,000 feet elevation, surrounded by hostiles with no support closer than 45 minutes away. Palmer hand-signaled, move out. They began the march to their observation position, moving in tactical column through terrain that was equal parts brutal and beautiful. The night was cold at this elevation, the air thin enough to make breathing difficult. But the team moved smoothly, each operator knowing their role, trusting the person ahead and behind. Maya was positioned in the middle of the column, standard for snipers who needed to be protected until they could establish their firing position. She kept pace easily, her physical conditioning more than adequate for the march. 6 hours of moving through mountains, carefully avoiding trails and obvious routes. They saw evidence of Taliban presence, old fighting positions, trash from camps, but no actual fighters. As dawn broke, they reached the observation position. It was perfect, a natural cave system carved into a mountainside with a clear view across a valley to the target compound below. Palmer deployed the team efficiently. Most went deep into the cave to establish the command post and monitoring station. Maya stayed near the entrance, setting up her sniper position. The compound was exactly 800 yards away, close enough for clear observation, far enough to avoid detection. Through her scope, Maya could see the buildings, the vehicles, the guards on patrol. Overwatch position established, she reported quietly into her radio. I have clear line of sight to target compound. Copy, Hayes replied. Begin observation. Log all movement, identify priority targets. Maya settled into the rhythm of surveillance. It was tedious work hours of watching, documenting, analyzing, but it was critical. This intelligence could save American lives. Over the next 36 hours, the mission went perfectly. Maya identified Khalid Nazari, the Taliban commander, on 2 occasions. Each time she had clear shots, but the mission was reconnaissance only. She documented his movements, his security protocols, his meeting patterns. The team intercepted communications, photographed documents, built a complete intelligence picture. This was Delta Force at its best, quiet, professional, effective. On the second night, Sullivan brought Maya food. You've been on that scope for 18 hours straight. You need to rest. I'm fine. You're exhausted. Let Jackson take a shift. Maya wanted to refuse, but Sullivan was right. She was tired, and tired snipers made mistakes. 2 hours, she agreed. Then I'm back on position. As she moved deeper into the cave to rest, she passed Palmer. He nodded to her, a small gesture, but meaningful. Approval, or at least acknowledgement that she was performing well. Maya found a spot near the back of the cave, wrapped in a thermal blanket, and closed her eyes. For the first time in days, she felt like maybe, just maybe, she was proving herself. She should have known it wouldn't last. Maya woke to the sound of explosions. For a moment, she was disoriented. Where was she? What was happening? Then training kicked in, and she grabbed her rifle, moving toward the cave entrance, even as her mind processed the situation. The command post was in chaos. Hayes was on the radio, Palmer was shouting orders, and through the cave entrance, Maya could see muzzle flashes in the pre-dawn darkness. Ambush, Palmer yelled. We're surrounded. Return fire. Maya reached the cave entrance and immediately understood how bad things were. Taliban fighters were positioned on 3 sides, firing from elevated positions. They'd clearly been lying in wait, knew exactly where the Delta team was located. This wasn't a chance encounter. This was a prepared ambush. How did they know we were here? Jackson asked, his voice tight with fear. Doesn't matter, Hayes snapped. We need to break contact. Palmer, take 4 men, and an RPG streaked through the dawn light and impacted directly into the cave entrance. The explosion was massive, deafening. Maya was thrown backward, her helmet flying off her ears, ringing. She came to seconds later, covered in dust and debris. Her rifle was somewhere nearby. She grabbed it, checked it for damage. Still functional. Around her was carnage. Morrison lay motionless near the cave entrance, half his body torn away by the RPG blast. Dead, no question. Specialist Brooks had been caught by shrapnel, a massive wound in his neck. Also dead. Corporal Williams had been at the command post when something, another RPG maybe, hit it directly. Nothing recognizable remained. Sergeant Ramirez, Private Thompson, Sergeant First Class Porter, all caught in the explosions. All dead. 6 operators down in the first 30 seconds. Lieutenant Hayes was alive, but barely. Shrapnel had torn through his chest and legs. He was conscious and shocked, trying to give orders, but the words weren't making sense. Palmer's leg was shattered bone, visible through his torn pants. He was dragging himself behind cover, face gray with pain. Jackson had taken a round through his shoulder, was trying to use his radio with one hand, while his other arm hung useless. Sullivan was unconscious, a head wound bleeding heavily. Still breathing, but for how long? Miller's arm was hanging at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. Davis seemed concussed, disoriented, stumbling. 6 dead, 6 alive, 5 of them wounded. And Maya, bruised, battered, covered in blood, that was mostly not her own, was the only operator who could fight at full capacity. Through the cave entrance, she could see Taliban fighters regrouping, preparing to assault the position. She counted at least 30, probably more. Palmer pulled himself to where Maya crouched. Reeves, I can't fight. None of us can except you. What do I do? Defend this position, call for extraction, keep us alive. Maya grabbed Hayes' backup radio. The main communications had been destroyed in the blast. Any station, this is Delta Sierra. We are combat ineffective, 6 KIA, 6 wounded. Request immediate case evac. Static. Then a response. Delta Sierra Bagram TOC. We copy your situation. Negative on immediate extraction. Weather system hit early zero visibility winds at 50+ miles per hour. No helicopters can fly. Earliest possible extraction is 72 hours when storm clears. 72 hours. 3 days. Maya looked at Palmer at the wounded teammates behind her at the Taliban fighters preparing to overrun their position. She had 28 rounds for her rifle, maybe 40 rounds for her sidearm, against 30+ Taliban fighters for 3 days. The mathematics were impossible. But Maya Reeves had never let impossible stop her before. Copy Bagram. We'll hold position until extraction. She turned to Palmer. Get everyone to the back of the cave. I'll defend the entrance. With 28 rounds. With whatever it takes. Palmer grabbed her arm, his grip surprisingly strong despite his injuries. Reeves, I was wrong about you. You've proven yourself 10 times over. Now prove it one more time. Keep my men alive. Not your men, Sergeant. Our men. And yes, I will. Maya moved back to the cave entrance, took up her sniper position, looked through her scope at the Taliban fighters preparing to attack. They outnumbered her more than 30-1. They had the high ground superior firepower time on their side. By every tactical calculation, she should surrender or retreat. But Maya Reeves wasn't thinking about tactics anymore. She was thinking about her father, about the legacy he'd left her, about the promise she'd made to prove she belonged. She was thinking about the 5 wounded men behind her who were depending on her to do the impossible. And she was thinking about all the people who doubted her, who'd said she didn't deserve to be here, who'd assumed she'd fail when things got hard. She'd spent her entire career trying to prove them wrong with words, with qualification scores, with training performance. Now she'd prove them wrong with bullets. The Taliban assault began. Maya put her eye to the scope and started shooting. The first Taliban fighter to die never saw the shot coming. He was the point man of their assault force moving up the mountain slope with his AK-47 at the ready, confident that the Americans in the cave were finished defeated, just waiting to be eliminated or captured. Through her scope, Maya watched him approach. 400 yards, clear shot. No wind to account for at this range. She controlled her breathing, settled the crosshairs on his center mass and squeezed the trigger. The M110 coughed. The fighter dropped like a puppet with cut strings. Immediately chaos erupted in the Taliban ranks. Fighters scrambled for cover, shouting to each other, trying to locate the source of the shot. Maya was already acquiring her second target, a man with an RPG launcher, the most dangerous threat to their position, 500 yards partially concealed behind a boulder. She waited, patient, deadly. The man shifted, exposing himself for just a moment to get a better angle on the cave. That moment was all Maya needed. Second shot, second kill. The RPG launcher tumbled down the mountainside. The Taliban assault wavered. They'd expected to overrun a wounded, disorganized force. Instead, they were taking precision fire from a sniper who clearly knew what she was doing. Maya shifted to her third target, a man who appeared to be a squad leader, rallying his fighters pointing toward the cave entrance. 450 yards. Third shot. He went down, and with him went the cohesion of the attack. The Taliban fighters broke, retreating to better cover, reassessing their approach. 3 bullets, 3 kills, 3 Taliban fighters who would never threaten anyone again. But 25 rounds left in her rifle, and at least 30 fighters still out there. Maya pulled back from the cave entrance, moved deeper into the shadows. Let them wonder where she was. Let them fear the next shot. Behind her, Palmer had organized the wounded as best he could. Hayes was unconscious now, his breathing shallow and irregular. Sullivan was still out, the head wound looking worse in the growing daylight. Davis was propped against the cave wall, looking dazed. Miller cradled his broken arm. Only Jackson seemed relatively alert despite his shoulder wound. He'd gotten the radio working and was in contact with command. "They're saying storm hit Bagram hard," Jackson reported. "Visibility 0, winds gusting to 60 miles per hour. They can't fly even if they wanted to. We're stuck here until it passes." "How long?" Maya asked. 72 hours minimum, maybe 96 if the storm stalls. "Then we hold for 3 days." Palmer laughed bitterly. "With 25 rounds, Reeves, I respect what you're trying to do, but the math doesn't work. There are 30+ Taliban out there. They know we're wounded. They can afford to be patient probe. Our defenses wait for us to run out of ammunition or bleed out. Then I make every bullet count. You'd have to be perfect. 0 misses, 0 wasted shots. Even then, I've been perfect my whole career, Sergeant. I don't plan to stop now. She moved back to the cave entrance, scanned the valley through her scope. The Taliban had pulled back to positions about 600 yards out using rocks and terrain features for cover. They were being smart, cautious. They'd learned that charging the cave was suicide, but they hadn't left. They were waiting, watching. And time was on their side. Maya did a quick assessment of their situation. Ammunition, 25 rounds in her rifle, 30 in her sidearm. Position defensible, but surrounded, friendly status. 5 wounded, 1 barely functional. Enemy strength, 30-plus fighters with unlimited ammunition. Support, none for 3 days minimum. Outcome, mathematically impossible. But mathematics had never stopped Maya Reeves before it bored me. She settled into position, made herself comfortable. This would be a long wait. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher, turning the Hindu Kush into a landscape of harsh light and deep shadows. The temperature in the cave fluctuated wildly, freezing in the shade, baking hot where the sun penetrated. The Taliban made no moves. They'd learned their lesson. Instead, they were setting up more permanent positions, bringing up supplies, settling in for a siege. Around noon, Maya spotted movement on a distant ridgeline. She focused her scope on it, saw something that made her blood run cold. A sniper. Taliban had brought in their own marksman. She could see the glint of glass in the sunlight, the outline of a human form settling into a shooting position. 1,200 yards away, extreme range but well within the capability of a trained sniper. This changed everything. Before, Maya only had to worry about Taliban fighters trying to assault their position. Now she had to worry about an enemy sniper who could pinhole her down, make it impossible for her to defend the cave entrance. "We've got a problem," Maya said into her radio. "What kind of problem?" Palmer asked from deeper in the cave. "Taliban brought in a sniper, 1,200 yards northeast ridgeline. He's setting up a position to counter-snipe me." "Can you take him out?" Maya did the calculations in her head. 1,200 yards in variable mountain winds. An incredibly difficult shot even in perfect conditions. And if she missed, she'd waste precious ammunition and reveal her exact position. "It's risky, but I don't have a choice. If he pins me down, they can assault the cave with impunity." "Then don't miss Reeves." Maya settled into her best shooting position, gathered every scrap of data she could. Wind speed and direction, temperature, humidity, angle of shot. She watched the distant sniper through her scope, saw him setting up his own rifle, preparing to engage. This was going to be a duel. 2 professionals 1,200 yards apart, each trying to kill the other. The enemy sniper fired first. Maya saw the muzzle flash had just enough time to drop flat. The bullet cracked past where her head had been impacting rock inches away. Close. Very close. Maya waited, letting the enemy sniper think he'd missed or maybe hit her. Let him wonder. Let him expose himself, trying to verify. There. He shifted positions slightly, trying to get a better angle. Maya lined up her shot with meticulous care. This was one of the most difficult shots a sniper could attempt, 1,200 yards against a moving target in variable wind. But she'd trained for this. Her whole career had been building to this moment. She exhaled slowly, found that perfect pause between heartbeats, where the world becomes absolutely still. Squeezed the trigger. Through her scope, she saw rock fragments explode near the enemy sniper's position. Close, but not a hit. He fired back immediately. This time the bullet hit closer, spraying her with stone fragments. They were feeling each other out, testing range and wind. But every shot used ammunition that Maya couldn't afford to waste. She had to end this duel quickly. The enemy sniper shifted again, trying to improve his position. In doing so, he exposed more of his silhouette against the sky. Maya made a decision. It was risky, incredibly risky. She deliberately exposed herself, giving him a clear shot, betting that he'd take it. And in that moment, when he was firing, when he was focused on her, she'd already be moving to a new position and taking her own shot. It was the kind of maneuver that required split-second timing and absolute confidence. The kind of thing that would get you killed if you hesitated even slightly. Maya stood up, made herself visible at the cave entrance. The enemy sniper took the bait. She saw his muzzle flash. She was already moving, dropping and rolling to her left, coming up in a new position, with her rifle already shouldered. The enemy's bullet passed through empty air where she'd been. Maya's crosshairs found him exposed and vulnerable as he worked his rifle's bolt. She fired. 1,200 yards. Extreme range. But the bullet flew true. Through her scope, Maya saw the enemy sniper jerk backward. Hit. A moment later, he toppled from his position, tumbling down the rocky slope. One of the best shots Maya had ever made, but it had cost her 2 more precious bullets. 23 rounds remaining. The Taliban reacted to their sniper's death with fury. They began massing for another assault, clearly determined to overrun the cave position before the Americans could inflict more casualties. Maya counted 20 fighters preparing to advance. They were spreading out using cover while moving in coordinated fashion. This wasn't a mob. This was a trained military unit executing a proper assault. With 23 bullets, Maya couldn't stop all 20 fighters. But she didn't have to stop all of them. She just had to stop enough to make the others lose their nerve. She picked her targets carefully. Leaders first, the men shouting orders, coordinating movement. Then the heavy weapons, machine guns, RPGs, anything that could destroy their cave position. The Taliban assault began. Maya started shooting. First target, squad leader, 400 yards. Drop him. Confusion spreads through his squad. Second target, machine gunner, setting up his weapon. Drop him before he can start firing. Third and fourth targets, 2 fighters carrying RPGs. Both dropped their rockets unused. Fifth target, another leader trying to rally his men. The assault began to falter. Maya had removed the spine of their attack, the leaders who provided direction, the heavy weapons that provided firepower. What remained were fighters who were realizing that every time they advanced, someone died, and they couldn't even see the sniper who was killing them. The attack broke. Taliban fighters retreated to cover, dragging their wounded, leaving their dead. 5 bullets, 5 kills, 18 rounds remaining. But there were still 25 Taliban fighters alive, and they were learning. Next time they attacked, they'd be smarter, more cautious, harder to stop. Palmer dragged himself to where Maya was positioned. His face was gray with pain, his makeshift bandage on his shattered leg soaked through with blood. "You just stopped a 20-man assault with 5 shots," he said, voice hoarse. That was incredible shooting, Reeves." "Just doing my job." "No, you're doing something way beyond your job. You're keeping us alive against impossible odds." He paused. "I need to tell you something. Before I die." "You're not dying, Sergeant." "Let me finish. I was wrong about you. Not just wrong, I was prejudiced. I looked at you and I saw a diversity hire someone who got special treatment because of what you look like. I couldn't see past that to recognize what you actually are." "What am I, Sergeant?" "You're one of the best soldiers I've ever served with. Better than me, better than most of the men in this unit. You earned your spot through excellence, and I was too blind to see it." Palmer's eyes filled with tears. "I'm sorry for doubting you, for making you prove yourself when you'd already done that 10 times over. I'm sorry." Maya felt her own throat tighten. "Apology accepted, Sergeant Palmer." "Rick, call me Rick. We've been through too much for formalities." "Then call me Maya." He smiled weakly. "Okay, Maya, now go back to doing the impossible. Keep us alive." As darkness fell on the first day, Maya did a situation assessment. The Taliban had pulled back to positions around 600 yards from the cave, establishing what was essentially a siege line. They'd learned that assaulting the cave meant dying, so now they were being patient. But patience worked in their favor. Every hour that passed meant Hayes got weaker. Sullivan remained unconscious. Palmer lost more blood. Time was killing the Delta team as surely as bullets would. Maya had 18 rounds left, maybe 3 days until extraction. The Taliban had unlimited ammunition and could call in reinforcements. The math still didn't work. But as her father used to say, courage wasn't about the odds. It was about doing the job anyway. Jackson crawled up to her position. "How you holding up?" "I'm fine. How's everyone else?" "Hayes is critical. He's been unconscious for hours. Breathing is really shallow. I think he's got internal bleeding we can't treat. Sullivan is the same. That head wound needs surgery we can't provide. Palmer's leg is getting infected. I can smell it. Davis might have a skull fracture. Miller's arm needs to be set properly. And you?" "Shoulder hurts like hell, but I'll live, assuming we get rescued." Jackson looked out at the darkening valley. "Maya, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I got the radio working well enough to send a message to Bagram, but not through official channels. Those are being monitored. I sent it to Colonel Price directly." Maya turned to look at him. My father's friend. Yeah, I told him the situation. Told him Marcus Reeves's daughter was defending 5 wounded men against overwhelming odds with limited ammunition. I asked him if there was anything at all he could do to speed up our extraction. What did he say? He said he'd move heaven and earth, that he owed your father a debt he could never repay, but saving you would be a start. Jackson managed a smile. So maybe the math isn't quite as impossible as we think. Maybe someone's working on our side. Maya felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, hope, fear, all mixed together. Thank you. Thank your dad. His legacy is still protecting you. That night was brutal. The temperature dropped below freezing. The wounded men were hypothermic despite Maya's efforts to keep them warm with what little they had. Hayes's breathing became even more labored. Sullivan still hadn't regained consciousness. And outside, Maya could hear the Taliban preparing something. Vehicle sounds, lots of activity, organizational chatter. They were planning something big for tomorrow. Maya stayed at the cave entrance all night, watching through her night vision scope, counting enemy positions. She identified at least 30 fighters, maybe 35. More had arrived during the day, reinforcements called in specifically to eliminate the stubborn Americans. As dawn broke on the second day, Maya was exhausted. She'd been awake for over 36 hours, had eaten almost nothing, was running on pure adrenaline and determination. But she couldn't rest, not when the Taliban were about to attack. Sure enough, as the sun rose, the enemy began massing. This time they had a different plan. Instead of a frontal assault, they were setting up mortars. They were going to shell the cave into rubble. Maya watched through her scope as Taliban fighters set up 2 mortar tubes about 800 yards out. They were taking their time doing it properly, clearly planning to drop indirect fire on the cave until everyone inside was dead. She had 18 bullets. The mortar teams were 800 yards away, partially concealed. Every shot would have to count. The first mortar team was easier, 3 men working the weapon more exposed. Maya took her time, lined up the shot fired. The mortar tube operator went down. His partners scrambled to take over, exposing themselves. Maya worked her bolt, fired again. Second man down. The third man had more sense. He dove for cover, but the mortar tube was now unmanned, temporarily useless. Maya shifted to the second mortar position. These fighters had learned from the first team's mistakes. They were staying low, using maximum cover. She waited, patient, watching. One of them had to expose himself to operate the weapon. There, a fighter raised his head to sight the mortar tube. Maya fired. He dropped. Another fighter tried to take his place. Maya dropped him too. 4 bullets used, 2 mortar positions neutralized. But it was temporary. Eventually the Taliban would find a way to shell the cave. Maya couldn't stop mortars with a rifle forever. The second day was a nightmare of attrition. Taliban fighters probed the position constantly, forcing Maya to engage in spending precious ammunition. Every few hours they'd try something new, a flanking maneuver, a rushed assault, an attempt to use smoke to cover their advance. Each time Maya stopped them, but each stop cost bullets she couldn't replace. By nightfall of the second day, she was down to 8 rounds, 8 bullets, still 30 Taliban fighters. One more full day until extraction. Palmer was delirious with fever from his infected leg. Hayes had stopped breathing around noon. They'd tried CPR, but he was gone. Sullivan had woken briefly, confused and disoriented, then slipped back into unconsciousness. Davis could barely move. Miller was stoic, but clearly in agony. Only Jackson remained relatively functional, helping Maya however he could despite his wounded shoulder. We're not going to make it, are we? Jackson asked quietly that night. We will, Maya insisted. We have to. Maya, be realistic. You've got 8 bullets. There are 30 fighters out there, and tomorrow they're going to throw everything at us. You can't stop them with 8 shots. Then I'll use hand-to-hand combat. Rocks. Whatever it takes. I'm not giving up, Jackson. Not when we're this close. You're incredible. You know that I've served with a lot of soldiers. None of them could have done what you've done these past 2 days. None of them. Maya didn't respond. She was too tired for compliments, too focused on survival. But Jackson's words meant something. Even if they died here, at least she'd proven beyond any doubt that she belonged, that she'd earned her place, that she was Delta Force. Sometimes that had to be enough. The third day began with Lieutenant Hayes' death being acknowledged officially. Jackson performed the grim duty of preparing the body, covering it with whatever they had. He was a good officer, Jackson said quietly. He doubted you, but he was trying to be fair. And at the end, he knew you were the real deal. Maya thought about Hayes' confession about the email she'd seen. He was doing his job, evaluating a new operator. I don't fault him for that. Most people wouldn't be so generous. Most people haven't been judged their whole lives. You learn to recognize the difference between honest evaluation and prejudice. She checked her rifle. 8 rounds. I just wish he'd lived to see the end of this, to see that his evaluation was right. I could handle combat at this level. He knows. Wherever he is, he knows. At 1,000 hours, the Taliban launched their final assault. Everything they had, every fighter, every weapon. A desperate, all-out attack designed to overrun the cave through sheer numbers and firepower. Maya counted 25 fighters advancing from multiple directions. She had 8 bullets. The math was impossible, but Maya Reeves had been beating impossible math for 2 days straight. She picked her first target, a fighter with an RPG. A dangerous threat. Drop him. 7 bullets. Second target, a squad leader directing the assault. Remove command and control. 6 bullets. Third and fourth targets, 2 fighters flanking on the left. Block that approach. 4 bullets. The assault was 20 meters from the cave entrance. Close enough that Maya could see, faces could see the determination in their eyes. She fired her 5th bullet. A fighter dropped. 3 bullets remaining. 20 fighters still advancing. Maya worked the bolt. 6th bullet. Another fighter down. 2 bullets. 19 fighters. She couldn't stop them. There were too many. But she could make them pay for every inch. 7th bullet. Fighter drops. 1 bullet left. And then she heard it, the most beautiful sound in the world. Helicopter rotors. The Taliban fighters heard it too. They hesitated, looked up, saw 2 Apache gunships screaming into the valley. The Apaches opened fire. Hellfire missiles, 30mm cannons, rockets. The mountainside erupted in explosions and devastation. The Taliban assault broke instantly. Fighters scattered, retreating, dying. Behind the Apaches came 2 Black Hawk helicopters, the extraction birds. They'd come early, 6 hours before the scheduled extraction window. Someone had pulled strings, had moved heaven and earth to get them here. Maya used her last bullet to drop one final Taliban fighter who was trying to shoot at the helicopters. Then her rifle was empty. But it didn't matter. They were saved. The extraction was chaos, but it was organized chaos. The kind that comes from well-trained professionals doing their jobs under fire. The 2 Black Hawks landed in the valley, rotors still spinning, door gunners laying down, suppressing fire, while the Apache gunships circled overhead, picking off any Taliban fighters brave or stupid enough to stay in the fight. A team of medics and security personnel sprinted from the helicopters toward the cave carrying stretchers and medical gear. Maya met them at the cave entrance, her rifle empty, but still at the ready. Old habits. 6 wounded, 1 KIE. She reported, voice hoarse from 3 days of shouting and breathing dust. Hayes is dead. Sullivan has a head wound, been unconscious for 2 days. Palmer's leg is shattered and infected. Davis has a probable skull fracture. Miller has a broken arm. Jackson has a shoulder wound. The lead medic, a young man with specialist rank, stared at her. And you? I'm fine. You're covered in blood. Not mine. He blinked, then nodded. Okay. We'll get your people loaded. Can you walk? I said I'm fine. That's not what I asked. Maya realized she was swaying on her feet, exhausted beyond anything she'd ever experienced. Yes, I can walk. Good, because we need to move fast. Weather's deteriorating again, and we've only got a narrow window. The next 15 minutes were a blur of activity. The wounded were loaded onto stretchers, Palmer, Davis, Miller, Sullivan. Jackson insisted on walking under his own power, though he needed support. Hayes's body was treated with the respect due a fallen officer, carefully wrapped and carried. Maya helped where she could, but mostly she just tried to stay out of the way. The professionals had this under control. As they loaded onto the Blackhawks, Palmer grabbed Maya's arm with surprising strength. You did it, he said, eyes bright with fever, but also with something else. Respect. Gratitude. You kept us alive. Against impossible odds. You did it. We did it, Maya corrected. Team effort. Palmer laughed, a sound that turned into a cough. Bullshit. This was all you. You're the reason we're not all dead. He squeezed her arm. Thank you, Maya, for everything. They loaded him onto the helicopter. Sullivan next, still unconscious, but with medics working on stabilizing him. Davis Miller Jackson, Hayes's body secured in the cargo bay. Finally, Maya climbed aboard. The helicopter lifted off immediately, the pilot not wasting a second. Through the open door, Maya watched the Hindu Kush fall away below them. Somewhere down there, Taliban fighters were regrouping, burying their dead, cursing the American sniper who'd held them off for 3 days. Maya had gone into those mountains as a soldier, trying to prove she belonged. She was leaving as someone who'd proven it beyond any doubt. The flight to Bagram airfield took 45 minutes. The medics worked frantically on the wounded, particularly Sullivan, whose head injury was critical. Maya sat against the bulkhead, eyes half-closed, rifle still clutched in her hands. She couldn't let it go. Some part of her brain insisted she might still need it, that the fight wasn't over. Jackson sat beside her, his good arm wrapped in a pressure bandage. "You know what they're going to call UBM," he shouted over the helicopter noise. "What? The angel of the Hindu Kush. Or maybe the ghost. Something dramatic. You're going to be a legend, Maya. First black woman in Delta Force, and you just pulled off one of the most incredible defensive stands in modern military history." "I don't want to be a legend. I just want everyone to survive." "That's why you'll be one. Legends aren't made by people seeking glory. They're made by people doing what needs to be done no matter the cost." They landed at Bagram airfield to a full medical response. Doctors and nurses rushed the wounded into the field hospital. Maya tried to follow, but a firm hand on her shoulder stopped her. Colonel Nathan Price stood there, her father's old friend, looking older and more tired than she remembered, but smiling. "Sergeant Reeves, your father would be very proud right now." "Sir, I need to check on my team." "Your team is in the best hands in the theater. You need to let the doctors work." Price guided her toward a different area. "Come with me. You need to be checked out too." "I'm not injured." "You're exhausted, dehydrated, and probably in shock. You need treatment, even if you don't think you do." In the medical tent, a nurse cleaned the cuts and abrasions Maya hadn't even noticed she had. Nothing serious, just the accumulated damage of 3 days in combat. Bruises, scrapes, one minor shrapnel wound that she genuinely didn't remember getting. The nurse also made her drink 2 bottles of water and eat something which Maya accomplished on autopilot. Price sat with her the whole time. "I got Jackson's message 2 days ago. I called in every favor I had to get that extraction moved up. Convinced a 3-star general to authorize helicopter operations in marginal weather conditions. Nearly got court-martialed for going around the chain of command." "Thank you, sir. You saved our lives." "No, Sergeant. You saved their lives. I just provided the ride home." Price leaned forward. "Maya, do you understand what you've accomplished? You held a defensive position for 72 hours against overwhelming odds. You eliminated at least 15 enemy fighters with minimal ammunition. You kept 5 wounded men alive in conditions that would have broken most soldiers. This is Medal of Honor territory." Maya shook her head. "I was just doing my job." "That's what your father always said too. After he saved my life in Fallujah, I tried to recommend him for a Silver Star. He refused, said he was just doing his job." Price smiled. "Heroism runs in the family, apparently." Over the next few hours, Maya visited her teammates in the hospital. Palmer was in surgery for his leg. The doctor said they might be able to save it, but it would be a long recovery. Sullivan was in ICU, still unconscious but stable. Davis was being treated for his concussion. Miller's arm was being set properly. Jackson was resting comfortably with his shoulder wound properly treated. All of them alive because Maya Reeves had refused to let mathematics define the outcome. That evening, alone in the temporary quarters they'd given her, Maya finally broke down. The adrenaline that had sustained her for 3 days crashed all at once, and she found herself sobbing for Hayes, who died before seeing the end, for the 6 operators who'd been killed in the initial ambush, for the impossible burden she'd carried and somehow not broken under. But also for relief, for the knowledge that she'd done it. She'd proven beyond any possible doubt that she belonged, that she'd earned her place, that she was worthy of the uniform that tabbed the career she'd built. Her phone rang. Her mother. "Baby, are you okay? The Army called me, said you were in a combat situation, but you're safe now." "I'm okay, Mom. I'm okay." "What happened?" Maya tried to explain, but the words wouldn't come out right. "How do you describe 3 days of impossible decisions, of mathematical impossibilities, overcome through will and skill?" "I did what Dad would have done," she finally said. "I protected my team. I didn't give up. I did my job. Her mother was crying. Your father is so proud of you right now. I know he is. And baby, I'm proud too. I've always been proud even when I was scared for you. You've proven something important, not just that women belong in combat or that black soldiers are as capable as anyone. You've proven that courage doesn't care what you look like. It only cares what you do. After the call, Maya lay in her bunk staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow would bring debriefs, investigations, award recommendations, press interest. The machinery of military bureaucracy would grind into motion. But tonight she could just be Maya Reeves. Exhausted, relieved, forever changed by 3 days that had tested her in ways she'd never imagined. And she'd passed the test. 2 weeks later, Maya stood in a hospital room at Walter Reed looking at Rick Palmer's leg in its complicated surgical brace. Doctors say I'll walk again, Palmer told her. Won't be running any marathons, but I'll walk. That's more than I expected when I was lying in that cave waiting to bleed out. You're too stubborn to let a little thing like a shattered leg stop you, Maya said. Takes one to know one. Palmer smiled. I owe you an apology that I can't fully express. I judged you based on prejudice, not performance. I made you prove yourself when you'd already done that 10 times over. And then when it really mattered, you proved yourself again in a way that can never be questioned. You already apologized, Rick. In the cave, remember? I was delirious with fever. This is the sober apology, the real one. His expression grew serious. Maya, you're one of the best soldiers I've ever served with. Not the best female soldier. Not the best black soldier. Just the best, period. And I'm ashamed it took 3 days of combat for me to see what should have been obvious from the beginning. We're good, Rick. Seriously, we're good. Jackson appeared in the doorway. Hate to interrupt, but there's someone here to see Maya. Maya followed him to the hospital's conference room. Inside, a general she didn't recognize was waiting along with Colonel Price and several other senior officers. The general spoke first. Sergeant Reeves, I'm General Marcus Hawthorne, JSOC Commander. I'm here to inform you that you're being recommended for the Medal of Honor for your actions in the Hindu Kush. Maya's mind went blank. Sir, that's not necessary. I was just doing my job. Your job was reconnaissance. What you did was defend 5 wounded men against overwhelming odds for 72 hours, eliminating 15 enemy fighters with limited ammunition and keeping your team alive until extraction. That exceeds just doing your job by several orders of magnitude. General Hawthorne smiled. The recommendation will go forward. Whether you receive the Medal of Honor or a lesser award will be determined by the review process. But I wanted you to know that your actions have been recognized at the highest levels. Sir, if I may, what about Lieutenant Hayes? He died leading that mission. He deserves recognition too. Lieutenant Hayes will be recommended for a posthumous Silver Star. His leadership prior to his death was exemplary. The general's expression softened. Sergeant, I understand your reluctance to accept recognition. Many of our best warriors feel the same way. But awards aren't just for you, they're for everyone who comes after you. Every young woman, every person of color, everyone who's been told they don't belong in uniform. You've shown them what's possible. 6 months later, Maya Reeves stood in front of a class of 20 Delta Force candidates at Fort Bragg. 3 of them were women, 2 were black, 1 was Asian American, 1 was Latina. Diversity had come to Delta Force, and Maya Reeves had kicked the door open. Welcome to day 1 of Delta Force selection. Maya began, her voice carrying across the training area. My name is Sergeant First Class Maya Reeves. Some of you know my story, some of you don't. It doesn't matter. What matters is your story, what you're going to accomplish here. She walked along the line of candidates, seeing the mixture of determination, nervousness, and hope in their faces. Some of you will fail this course, most of you actually. Not because you're not good enough, but because this course is designed to find the absolute best. The ones who can operate under impossible conditions with impossible odds. She stopped in front of one of the female candidates, a young black woman with determination burning in her eyes. Some of you will face doubt. People will question whether you belong here, whether you earned your spot, whether standards were lowered to accommodate you. Maya looked directly at the young woman. My advice: don't argue with doubters using words. Prove them wrong with performance. Make your actions so loud, so undeniable, that even the prejudiced have to shut up and listen. She addressed the full class again. You'll hear people talk about diversity, about quotas, about social engineering. Ignore that noise. You're here because you passed the same selection standards as everyone who came before you. If anything, you had to be better because you'll be judged more harshly. Maya held up the Medal of Honor she'd received 3 months earlier. This medal doesn't belong to me. It belongs to 5 men who trusted me to keep them alive: Palmer, Jackson, Sullivan, Davis, Miller. It belongs to 6 men who died before they could see the mission through: Hayes, Morrison, Brooks, Williams, Ramirez, Thompson. It belongs to my father, Marcus Reeves, who taught me that courage is doing the job when you're scared out of your mind. She paused, letting the words sink in. And it belongs to all of you, because you represent the future of special operations. More diverse, more capable, more reflective of the country we protect. Never apologize for being here. Never doubt you earned it. Just do the job better than anyone thought possible. Welcome to Delta Force Selection. Let's begin. That evening, Maya visited Arlington National Cemetery. Her father's grave was in Section 60 among other heroes who'd fallen in Iraq and Afghanistan. She placed her Medal of Honor on the headstone. Hey, Dad, sorry it's been a while since I visited. Been busy with the new instructor job. She sat on the grass like she used to do as a kid when her father would take her to his father's grave. I did it, Dad. I became Delta Force. And then I proved beyond any doubt that I belong there. The doubters have been silenced. Not all of them, maybe, but enough. A shadow fell across her. Maya looked up to see a young woman in Army uniform, the candidate she'd spoken to that morning. Ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt. Not interrupting. What's your name? Private Jessica Reeves, ma'am. Maya froze. Reeves. Yes, ma'am. Marcus Reeves was my uncle. He died in Fallujah when I was 6 years old. I barely remember him, but my family talks about him all the time. Maya stared. Marcus had a brother, which meant this young woman was her cousin. I'm Maya. Marcus was my father. Jessica's eyes widened. You're the Maya Reeves, the angel of the Hindu Kush. I really wish people would stop calling me that. Oh my God, I can't believe we're related. I mean, I knew Uncle Marcus had a daughter, but I never made the connection. Jessica looked down at the Medal of Honor on the gravestone. Is that yours? Technically, but I think it belongs to Dad more than me. He taught me everything that made those 3 days possible. Jessica knelt down, touched her uncle's headstone gently. I joined the Army because of him. Because of you too. When I heard what you'd done, how you'd proven that women belong in special operations, I knew I had to try. Even though everyone said it was too hard, that I should pick an easier career path. Maya stood, helped Jessica to her feet. Walk with me. They walked through Arlington's rows of white headstones, 2 generations of Reeves women carrying forward a legacy. Can I tell you something? Maya asked. Well, selection is brutal. Most candidates fail. You're going to face doubt, prejudice, physical challenges that seem impossible. There will be days when you want to quit. I won't quit, Jessica said fiercely. Good, because we need more people like you, more diversity, more perspectives, more excellence. Maya stopped walking, turned to face her cousin. But I'm going to be harder on you than on anyone else in your class. What, why? Because you're family, because you carry our name, because I know what you're capable of, and I'm going to push you to exceed even that. Maya smiled. I'm not going to give you special treatment. I'm going to hold you to the standard your uncle would have expected. Think you can handle that? Jessica straightened to attention. Yes, ma'am, I can handle it. Then let's get started. Training begins 0500 tomorrow. Don't be late. As they walked back toward the parking area, Maya thought about legacy, about how her father's sacrifice had inspired her and how her achievements were now inspiring the next generation. The fight for equality wasn't over. There would still be doubters, still be prejudice, still be barriers to overcome. But every person who succeeded made it easier for the next one. Every barrier broken made the path a little wider for those who followed. Maya Reeves had fought her way into Delta Force against enormous odds. She'd proven herself in the most extreme circumstances imaginable, and now she was making sure the next generation wouldn't have to fight quite as hard. That was legacy. That was honor. That was worth more than any medal. As the sun set over Arlington, Maya looked back at her father's grave one last time. I'll take care of her, Dad, your niece, just like you took care of your people, just like you taught me. The headstone offered no response, but Maya felt in that moment that her father heard her, that he was proud, that the legacy he'd started would continue through her, through Jessica, through every soldier who came after them. The shot doesn't end when you pull the trigger. It ends when you decide who you want to become. Maya Reeves had made her decision. She'd become someone who broke barriers, who proved excellence transcends prejudice, who made it possible for others to follow. And that was enough. More than enough. It was everything. Maya Reeves learned that you can't argue with prejudice using words. You have to drown it out with performance so loud, so undeniable, that even the doubters have no choice but to listen. Today, Sergeant First Class Maya Reeves serves as senior instructor for Delta Force Selection Course. She's trained over 200 special operations candidates, including 37 women who followed the path she blazed. Her 72-hour stand in the Hindu Kush is now taught as a case study in tactical defense, resource management, and leadership under impossible conditions. Staff Sergeant Rick Palmer, who once doubted her most vocally, now serves alongside her as an instructor. He tells every new class, I was wrong about Sergeant Reeves. I let prejudice blind me to excellence. Don't make my mistake. Judge people by what they do, not what you think they can't do. The 5 men Maya kept alive for 3 days, Palmer Jackson, Sullivan, Miller, and Davis, all recovered from their wounds. They visit her every year on the anniversary of the extraction, a brotherhood forged, not despite their doubts, but through her proving them unfounded. And that young cousin, Private Jessica Reeves, she graduated Delta selection with honors, becoming the second Reeves to earn the distinction, carrying forward a family legacy of service that transcends any barrier. Maya's father, Marcus Reeves, never got to see his daughter become Delta Force, but his sacrifice in Fallujah created a legacy that inspired not just Maya, but an entire generation of soldiers who learned that courage has no color, no gender, only commitment. If this story inspired you, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share it with anyone who's been told they don't belong, who's faced doubt because of who they are rather than what they can do. Leave a comment about a time you proved doubters wrong. We read everyone. Thank you for spending this time with us. Remember, you don't have to argue with people who doubt you. Just perform at a level that makes their doubts irrelevant. Until next time, stay strong, stay excellent, and never let anyone else define what you're capable of achieving.